Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in to another rousing rendition of Libservative. Lots to cover today. Basically about how Republicans and Democrats need each other. Liberals and conservatives need each other, particularly in the media spaces. We got Idaho, Corey, blocking or waging a war. They're waging, well, okay, that actually kind of makes sense. It kind of fits because they're waging a war apparently on tampons, which is weird. And if Dylan Mulvaney didn't exist, I don't know what the Daily Wire would have to talk about. All that and a ton more coming up. He, of course, as always, is Corey Walsh.
Oh, and he's Dan Griffin.
Hello.
Two intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy.
We lost your camera here, Corey.
What's going on
for Bell the Body Snatcher.
Kidding me?
Is it going wrong? Is this how it's going to be? Because you know what? It's the FBI
no.
again. It's the FBI coming at us again. It's the wrong camera, but
Oh,
we'll
I
take
got
it.
this camera. Jesus, Murphy. Yeah, we're back.
We apologize. We apologize to those just listening as Corey deals live with his technical difficulties.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Oh, yes, we will. Anyway, where were we going to start this evening? I did want to start with obviously what we're consuming in the cultural sphere. For me, I went ahead and took in the wonderful 3-part Netflix series, and I know Bell did as well, Waco, American Apocalypse, because the incident of Waco and the Branch Davidians back in 1993 in the the ATF and the raid and the fire, and we all know the story because it's one of the most infamous stories really in modern American history. But I don't think I've ever seen the story quite told this way. Multiple former Davidians were interviewed in this series, and you got some admission. For anybody who's lived under a rock and doesn't know what the fuck the Waco story is, essentially, a goofy-ass cult leader that thought he was Jesus Christ duped a bunch of people into going to live in a compound outside of Waco in Texas. He fucked all the guys and all the girls, as cult leaders always do, and apparently had a shit ton of guns, I believe some grenades, some pretty heavy artillery, and the ATF suspected this cult leader, David Koresh, of modifying weapons. I think was really the first suspicion to make them illegal, right? And so the ATF conducts a raid. David Koresh gets tipped off by the postman, who was also a Davidian, and the ATF didn't realize that when they asked about it. And some agents got killed, some Davidians got killed, and it ended up in whatever the hell it was, an 87-day standoff between the FBI and the ATF and the Branch Davidians. David Koresh kept making deals about how he's going to send people out, and the feds go in with what we still believe to be tear gas in through the front of the building. 3 random fires get started in various corners of the building. Nobody ever comes out. The building burns down. A bunch of people die. And it's really viewed as a tragedy from law enforcement overstepping their bounds perspective. Libertarians all over the country were going, well, we should just be allowed to own whatever weapons we want. If you want to take the Spike Cohen perspective, we should be allowed to own tanks and bazookas too. Debatable, but I understand Spike's point there. But the other side of the story is that David Koresh was also a piece of shit who probably needed to be stopped from harming people. And it's one of those stories where it's one of those stories where both things can be true at the same time. And for a long time, law enforcement involved never really admitted that they did anything wrong. But what was interesting about this particular documentary series is that in hindsight, there was retired ATF agents. I don't remember who all was in it, but retired law enforcement that was involved there, basically admitting like, yeah, we really fucked up that situation like royally. Because what I didn't realize was that the negotiators that were speaking with David Koresh and the boots on the ground guys were not communicating well at all. So the negotiators talking to David Koresh were kind of getting them to concede some things. Hey, send kids out. And they did like I'll send them out 2 by 2, like it's fucking Noah's Ark or some shit. And the people on the ground were bringing in Abrams tanks and playing loud music to try and annoy or drive the Davidians crazy. And negotiators know that those type of tactics don't fucking work. All they do is escalate the situation. And it was just a huge mess. I was interested in the interviews with the former Davidians. Actually the last child that was released prior to the building burning down was interviewed. And I didn't really think about it from this perspective, but like the biggest takeaway I had from her interviews were she's got really fucking bad survivor's guilt. Like, why in the hell was I the last kid that got released?
Right.
And you even had certain Davidians that were, I didn't expect this, but in a kind of roundabout way, they still kind of defend David Koresh. They still defend his actions and what he was trying to do.
You had that one lady
I found that
talking
really
about how it's really not bad that he was sleeping with 12-year-old girls, because in her mind and everybody else's mind there, girls come to age at 12 years old.
Yeah, in their religion. So
Yeah.
very, very interesting stuff.
So I fucked up, and everyone was telling me to watch the Waco documentary, and I started
Like
the one
wrong
on Hulu, and not Netflix. But I mean, so far everything you're saying tracks. They said basically the same thing on there, but then I didn't really get to watch that because what are you drinking, Dan?
Me right now, I'm finishing up a gin and tonic, but I've also got on deck here a little bit of Russell's 10-year on deck for me too. So
Okay,
should be good. And then I've also got a tall boy of Modelo that I found in the side of my fridge. So that's gonna get
Cerveza.
hammered. Yeah.
That was inappropriate and grotesque toilet humor in the microphone.
Not at all.
But what's causing that is Oberon from Bell's Brewery here in Michigan. You like that?
Who are you, Dylan Mulvaney for Oberon today?
Yes, I am. Actually, yes, because you can see that's my face, clear as day. On the can.
Personalized bottle now.
Don't you tell? It looks just like me.
So Oberon is a Michigan beer. It's a summer beer, and it's like April 5th, and they just start releasing these seasonals earlier and earlier every year, don't they?
I believe so, yeah.
I think you can get Oberon year round now.
No, there's still Oberon.
It's still
Day.
seasonal, yeah.
And I think it is, yeah. It still comes out at the same time every year, but
I
yeah.
haven't bought it in a long time.
So happy belated Oberon Day, everyone, my fellow Michiganders. I myself have had a nice, relaxing 4-day weekend. I took the boy to Castaway Bay in Ohio, northeast of East Palestine by about, I think, like 100 miles or so. So being in a water park and water far away from there was still like, but kind of just dealt with it. Suspension of
That's chlorinated. You're good.
Yeah, it's chlorinated. Yeah, there's a lot of chlorine in it now. Vinyl chloride. But yeah, I ended up, and while I was there, we had some downtime and we were in the hotel room, and I ended up watching this documentary about, it's just following this kid who was growing up in Afghanistan, living in the caves during the whole occupancy of the Taliban, then the United States, then the Taliban again. And it was interesting to see just like their life and stuff like that. Like he was talking about how the first time he ever saw a camera, I didn't even know what it was. He was like 8 years old, and some guy was just pointing something at me. And it just didn't stop. And like you see this little kid when it shows them this like kind of like side eye and this weird fucking lens thing. And then yeah, that's oh, I saw Cocaine Bear.
You did. I did not see
Yes,
Cocaine Bear yet.
It's actually pretty good. It's funny.
Is it like Sharknado, but like better
Never seen
quality?
Sharknado. Never seen
Okay.
Sharknado.
You know the
that's-
premise of the movie, right?
Yeah, some sharks
so
get
bad
pulled
that
up
it's
in a
good.
tornado.
And then they start terrorizing various cities, depending on if you're on Sharknado 1 or Sharknado 18. It really revived Ian Ziering's career, just so
Wait,
everybody's
there's like
aware.
18 of those?
Oh, yeah, there's a shitload of them.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's like Tremors.
Well, Tremors
No,
is
there's
better. At
more.
least it had Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, the first two are good of Tremors. Third is and then it just kind of goes downhill from there.
Yeah. I wonder if,
Like Home
wonder if-
Alone.
wonder if Tremors would be canceled today.
Why?
I don't know.
There's literally 8 Sharknadoes.
Isn't Tremors an all-white cast? That's why.
No, there's Hispanic people in it.
Not dark enough.
They're in the middle of the
Wouldn't-
desert.
Wouldn't qualify.
These people are. There's an Asian lady
Yeah.
That's right.
And
That's
a-
right. Yeah.
and a Hispanic lady. And that
Okay.
guy looks Hawaiian.
Yeah. Bell's over here pulling up the cast. He's on the
All right,
International
they'd be
Movie
fine. They'd be fine.
Database.
They'd be fine.
He is
Tremors
searching the International Movie Database right now.
Tremors is
What am I here
definitely
for?
woke enough. When you're throwing Samoans in there, you're doing a good job. Doing a good job with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Good job to the creators of Tremors.
Glad they passed your smell test, Dan.
Corey, just a couple quick openers. We got the Wisconsin Supreme Court has now gone majority liberal after the election. What was it? Yeah, would have been last night, right? Tuesday.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Did anybody? It was probably because of those Facebook posts that told Republicans to go out and vote on Wednesday. That had to be what did it.
Yeah, probably. That's probably exactly what it was. That goddamn Doug McKay or whatever his name was. We talked about him last week. No, he's the one that told Democrats to vote by mail. It was just the millions of Democrats sharing the meme that Republicans vote on Wednesday that didn't
yes.
catch a case.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, no, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. I just find it interesting that like since Roe v. Wade was overturned, anytime a vote for or against being pro-choice is laid at the feet of the voting, the voters, it always seems to go in the direction of pro-choice. It seems that the only states that are trying to pass all these ridiculous like 6-week bans and stuff like that are the ones who are already like locked into their position and their seat of power, that they're hurry up and trying to change the legislation. Because even Kentucky, they voted on their ballot to not make it a constitutional thing to ban abortion. Now Wisconsin, there's just a bunch of states that are constantly leaning pro-choice, which
The
makes
first
sense.
one-
70% of the
was
country.
Kansas.
Yes, 70% of the country is in favor of Roe v. Wade. I think it is.
Or
that's the number.
I don't think that's it. Maybe Bell can find it, but I know that the vast majority of Americans support the ability of having access to abortion to a certain point.
Right.
Everybody's a little bit different on like when that cutoff should be.
12
but
weeks, 15 weeks. You know, like I
very,
know that in
very
the UK,
few. Yeah,
a
very
lot of
few
European
Americans.
countries.
Very few Americans support an outright ban of abortion. It's a very small number, something
As
like
evidenced
11 or
by
12%.
Them just getting lambasted every time it comes to the vote for the people.
Mhm.
Oh, and then your boy over here has started kind of, instead of just talking into a microphone about this shit, was collecting some signatures last weekend for ranked choice voting in the city of Royal Oak.
Too confusing, too extreme, Corey.
Too confusing, too extreme, like proposal 2. Yeah. No, we're on a good start. I think they need a total of, I forget the exact number, but it's not hundreds of thousands. It's like maybe 1 comma and like 4 numbers of how many they need to get to put this on the ballot for their city. And we're off to a good start. I'm not going to be able to go this weekend. I'll probably go back down next weekend, hang out in the farmers market. So if you're local, come say hey.
Bell just threw out some Gallup poll numbers. The percentage of Americans who consider themselves quote unquote pro-choice has risen in the past year to 55%, its highest level in decades, according to a Gallup poll released Thursday. Gallup surveyed more than 1,000 U.S. adults by telephone over 3 weeks, beginning May 2nd. Politico published a draft opinion suggested that the Supreme Court could soon overturn Roe v. Wade. So there you have it. Those are the numbers.
But
right.
That was then. So majority of Americans supported it back then. I mean, then they overturned Roe v. Wade, and now you see even more support. So,
right, because I think there's a big difference between people just going, "Yeah, no, I don't want that," when it's like in place. You know what I mean? They to be able to bitch about it when it's there, to where all of a sudden where it's real and it's tangible, that it's not there anymore. They're like, "Oh well, maybe a little bit of that is okay."
Well, it's nuanced, and if you think about it, I mean, I think you and I were kind of in the same boat. You know, we're both certainly pro-choice. I think there should be some limits on abortion, right? Like, I don't want you scraping babies out of uteruses, you know, when they're 2 weeks away from being born. You know, I think a lot of
just because all of a sudden you made the decision to not have it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course, if there are medical reasons or whatever, that's of course different. But yeah. And so, but I still think
that number, like that, just for the listeners.
It hardly ever happens.
The percentage of the people that you're saying that about is like equivalent to the percentage of people who get abortions because of rape. It's like 1%.
It was like conservatives wanting to push out the whole. Are you familiar with the late term abortion problem? I was like, you're making this up. This isn't a thing.
Yeah.
This isn't a problem. Most doctors are ethical in that way. They're not going to perform an abortion on an 8-month-old fetus. Nobody does that, unless, of course, there's some legitimate medical reason to.
But at that point, even you could do an emergency,
like
the emergency induction.
You could try to. You could try to save the premature baby, of course. Yeah, that's generally how it goes.
And that's like 99% of the time. That's how it goes. Yeah, so like it's an interesting argument because both people use two numbers of something that virtually doesn't happen to defend their case, when it's like, you know, like, how about we just let women have say over their own bodies?
Yeah, it's anecdotal, and you know, both sides are guilty of this on various political issues. It's the use of an anecdotal story to prove a broad point, and it just absolutely doesn't work.
No, interesting. So that poll that Bell brought up was a Catholic poll.
That's the Knights of Columbus poll. He mentioned that after. Yeah.
61%.
This is an updated poll.
The Knights of Columbus, a Catholic charity organization designed to bring financial aid and assistance to those in need, released an annual poll Wednesday concerning Americans' opinions on abortion alongside Marist College, a private liberal arts college in New York. The 2023 poll found that 61% stated that they identified as pro-choice.
And that's coming
from the poll in a different location.
Because when all of a sudden it's faced, pro-life is not allowing any of this, and pro-choice is being a little nuanced about it, they're like, oh, maybe I am pro-choice.
Yeah. So the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, big win for progressives. I think this is another politically plural, decent win when it comes to balancing out state Supreme Courts and the Supreme Court in general, because, and here's why, especially in a state like Wisconsin, which correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Bell can find this for us as well, but I do believe Wisconsin is the singular most gerrymandered state by Republicans in recent memory.
Yes. So the Supreme Court judge that just won, the two things that she ran on actually was being pro-choice and ending gerrymandering.
Yeah. And so again, if you support political pluralism, you know, I like the idea of switching the balance of power. If it's too liberal, I want a little bit more conservatism in that spot. And if it's too conservative, I want a little more liberalism in that spot.
I just want competent people.
They're not even
a label. But you know,
Not
it's
even in the top
interesting.
5 for most gerrymandered.
No.
And what's interesting is when Roe v. Wade was first overturned and everyone was freaking out, you and I both were like, "Holy shit, this is a big deal." But we were talking about how it gives the opportunity of the people to have more say in their states versus the federal government actually making this mandated for everyone. And we said it's going to get sloppy, it's going to get really scary. A lot of people are going to lose their rights, but when the chips fall, because we're giving more power to the people, we might actually see like this actually be like a net positive for the American people, because now, before it was just everything was based on this precedent of a law. Now a bunch of states are actually codifying it into their constitutions to where it's fuck the federal government. In our state, this is what we believe. This is now the law. And it's interesting to see it developing as time goes on.
Okay, so Bell shared a rant piece that is this old, Bell? Because I'm seeing
I don't know. These are the top links.
compactness score from 2014.
Utah, Texas, Louisiana, is that Arkansas, Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Maryland are the 10 most gerrymandered states.
Is this overall though, or is this from a certain point? Because I think the Wisconsin point was for like recent memory, like within the last decade. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not really something. It's not really a hill to die on. But
here's their definition. So gerrymandered is defined as setting boundaries in electoral districts to give blah blah blah. We know that, but
so it looks like this is like an overall gerrymandering score.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be hard to find.
So here's the graph that we're looking at right now. It is for 2023. And the 10 most states are, Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, North Carolina. Interesting.
The inception of gerrymandering comes from when minorities were able to start voting.
Mm-hmm. So
if anybody,
I guess
that's listening doesn't know.
Not really a hill I'm willing to die on, but Wisconsin is gerrymandered, and we want to end it regardless. So we're still going to take this as a victory.
Well, Michigan just passed a law to end gerrymandering.
So we'll
see how that goes. So off we go.
Political pluralism. The Wisconsin Supreme Court race was a win, in my view, for political pluralism. And just a little quick mention of more political pluralism. Conservatives wanting to say, I think maybe that this means a little bit more than it actually does. But the Chicago mayoral race was won by the progressive candidate Brandon Johnson. However, it went to a runoff against essentially a pro-cop Democrat, and it was really close. So I think what that tells you is is it Chicagoans? I don't know. Sorry for not knowing that, but
Chicagites
really
Chicagites.
Chigs.
Really?
Why does that sound racist?
I said chicks.
No, I said chigs. And then I said, why does that sound racist?
Watch your mouth.
All I said was I'm not gonna say it again because it might be racist. I don't know. It wasn't. It's not my intent.
It does sound like a fictional racial slur, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like Muggle from Harry Potter.
I immediately thought of the bugs in the South that burrow into your feet.
Chiggers.
No, I didn't say it.
They're here.
Bell did.
Brandon Johnson, the progressive candidate, barely won. Who, by the way, is the the racially minority candidate, if that means anything to anyone. But I think what it means is that people from Chicago are getting kind of sick of the violence, and I think that is really what was Lori Lightfoot's downfall in the first place, because she just denied it. She denied that it was a problem. She made up bullshit numbers about how crime is not a big problem in Chicago. And what we also know is that traditionally, and there are obviously other factors that go into this, but it seems like when you lower police presence, it tends to affect minority groups negatively more than anyone else. Now, obviously, this is another discussion for another day. I think I speak for Corey and Bell on this as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. We are certainly not pro-policing in this country. We're certainly not pro-law enforcement. We have a pretty libertarian stance on that. But the data, as the system is set up now, does show that when you reduce a police presence, particularly in lower income areas, it has a more negative effect on poor people.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily go ahead, Bell.
I was gonna say, you could just say you're pro society.
Yeah, it's not that I necessarily want to see no police. I just want to see the police stop fucking with people over trivial shit and worrying about the actual like criminals who not just people who own guns and going after them, but going after people who are using guns in illegal matter. In illegal matter. If that makes sense. What's up, Bright and Eyes? I want to see police not being called to a mental health crisis with someone who's severely on the spectrum where they end up just killing that person. I want to see accountability when cops fuck up. There are certain in dense populated areas, there tends to lead to more crime because there's more people, and and it's I want accountability, transparency. Yeah. Obviously, less police isn't doing it, but how about police fucking with people less and being trained better?
And Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson of Chicago did clarify that he does support law enforcement, but he aims to focus funding on boosting the rank of detectives. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to accomplish. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. But more importantly, investing in mental health response teams.
Oh, that means actually probably solving murders.
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of an Eric Adams in New York flair to it. Not quite that, not quite as pro cop, I would say. But I think he does recognize that Lori Lightfoot's strategy was atrocious. And you could still be a progressive mayor, and at least, I don't know, who knows what he's going to do, but at least pretend like you care, and at least admit that crime in Chicago is a problem. So we'll see what happens there. It's an interesting thing. I don't think folks on the right want to sit and pretend like the fact that this runoff election being so close means that like suddenly big cities like Chicago and LA and New York are suddenly going to swing to the right. I think that's ridiculous. That's certainly not going to happen. But I think what it also shows is that there's issues that people care about. They want it fixed, and it better get fixed, even if it's by progressives.
So I did a quick search in WTTW. They say the homicide clearance rate in lower Chicago is about 50%.
So that's murder solved, correct?
Yeah. So only 50% of the murders are being solved. So when you're in a city, and let's say you want to fucking kill someone, you have a 50% chance of being caught. You don't think people take things like that into account when they go off and do wild shit?
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I don't know.
So bolstering detectives to actually go out there and try to do a clearance rate and things like that. It makes sense.
Before you move on, would it be progressive to repeal laws and run a campaign on repealing laws instead of running a campaign on writing new laws and spending more money and doing all these things?
That's called a libertarian.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, it's not just that, but I would say that like it depends on what the law is, right?
Right, because I think that repealing Patriot Act would be pretty progressive.
Yeah, and repealing gun laws would be really conservative. So it just depends on the law. It's like that's what I think that's what makes us so frustrated overall in general when it comes to our legal system, is that it's actually become politicized. Yeah. Depending on what law you're bringing in or what law you're repealing, it's going to be based on whatever social political silo you happen to fall in. And that's just not how we should be determining what's legal and what's illegal.
Hell yeah.
So
on to the next.
Progressive from a definitional standpoint, sure. I guess it would invoke progress if we repealed some laws.
Yeah. It's being a progressive, just invoking progress, and if that's getting rid of draconian laws,
Right.
that would still be considered progressive.
Laws that turn people into felons and
Yeah.
they
Corey?
don't need to be.
What do you want?
Trump pleads not guilty to 34 counts of bad bookkeeping.
Oh boy, here we go.
In New York.
Is what this has turned out to really be. And look, I've taken a few things away from this, right? First of all, I don't know if I should say this first because it's probably going to lose us some listeners because it's going to piss a few people off. But don't get me wrong, we'll come around on this. Democrats never learn. Like this is the first takeaway that I had from this. They are so caught up in getting Trump on something that it just doesn't even matter how they get him, and everybody wants to get him. And Alvin Bragg is the first to be able to at least have an opportunity. Whether or not this case will, I have a feeling it's going to.
I don't think it's
very
going to flounder.
But he was the one that had the first opportunity. But the problem here is the fact that there are better cases that actually have a chance to stick
that are just going to get discredited,
that are waiting in the wings. But now, since like Trump can be a criminal and a bad person and a piece of shit and somebody that we want to go away, and it can also be a witch hunt. And I think it is both things. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So my take on everything that's happening right now is you hear a lot of people talking about, oh, it's political. Oh, this sets bad precedents. Oh, this and that and this and that. And so where I'm sitting at right now, like seeing how this happens. First off, seeing Trump go down like this, it feels hollow. It feels super hollow. I don't like the guy. But seeing him like, oh, we finally fucking got him on a fucking bookkeeping thing. Like we've been told for the last 6 years that he's the most corrupt, the biggest criminal. He's the worst president we ever had. And we're going to knock him out Al Capone style on basically some sort of white collar crime.
That was going to be my thing. It's like, it feels like getting Al Capone on tax evasion.
It feels like bullshit. Is it political though? Absolutely. This is fucking political 100%, because what they're going after him on is stuff that thousands of these other fucking politicians have done. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when they say it sets bad precedents, I disagree, because the precedent that's being set is, yes, we can go after people regardless of who they are and regardless of their power in this country. Now, it's a bullshit,
it also shows that we don't.
But yeah, that's right there. That's what makes it political, because it shows that we don't, that we have the manpower to do this on people that we want to, but we have all of these cushy elitists that are just insulated inside their little shells that can't be touched for insider trading, right? From Nancy Pelosi to Dan Crenshaw. We have all of these people who do illegal things all the goddamn time, from DUIs to fucking tax evasion, insider trading. There's so many goddamn politicians that do this kind of shit, left or right, Republican, Democrat, I don't give a shit. But for some reason, Trump is the one that we have to take down. And I think that's what pisses me off about this, because when this happens, you're going to get all these people like just dusting their hands off going, we fucking did it. We saved democracy. Mm-hmm. When meanwhile, you have thousands of these other people who are doing the same shit he did. They're just not as loud about it. And I hope that this precedence that's being set has fruition of taking down just fuck it. Yeah, everybody.
So I'm going to tell you why I think I appreciate your sentiment on that, but I'm gonna tell you why I think you missed the mark. And this is not an original idea. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm getting over the tail end of a cold here. But Ryan Grimm from Counterpoints made a really, really great point on the live broadcast that he did with Crystal and Sagar as Trump was kind of walking into the prison or whatever, or the prison. When he showed up to New York, I'm getting ahead of myself. So he brought up a great point that charges like this, that it's based on tawdry stuff, right? Like him paying off a porn star, stuff that typically a politician isn't going to do, although they have in the past. You think of what's his nuts, John Edwards. You think of what happened with Bill Clinton, but more often than not, like these things don't really occur. So it's trying to get him on a crime that kind of insulates the establishment. Does that make sense?
Yep. Nope. I listened to that same thing. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
If you try and charge him with something like, something real, like insider trading or any of the things that you talked about. Top secret
documents.
Well, now that sets a precedent that you have to go after everybody else in the establishment that's done that, and they don't want to set that precedent. They just want to get Donald Trump. So, did he commit a crime? Every single legal analyst on the left and the right, Republicans, Democrats, they all agree that yes, he committed a state misdemeanor here. Like if that was the charge and that was what you were going after, I wouldn't have an issue with it. It's trying to bump this thing up to a felony based on flimsy legal theory, just so that you can be the one that quote unquote nails Trump. Right. That is what's gross to me.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like.
Again, for our listeners, this is coming from people who fucking hate Trump.
Donald Trump. Yeah.
I hate his policies. I don't like what he did to our country. He created this he just injected this. He took the little bit of murmurs of divisiveness in this country and threw it into steroids. Now, granted, it makes everyone pay attention to politics. It was in 2016 when I first started paying attention to politics. But it's clear as day. When you look at it, when you back up 3,000 feet and you see how people like Doug McKee over tweeting that you could just text the vote and they're coming after right-wing people on this versus not left-wing people who told Republicans to vote on a Wednesday. There's politicization happening in our Department of Justice. And now you know what we're going to see now? We're going to see the right just trying to attack the left and do the same thing once they get back in power.
You already had Matt Walsh today talking about how, the liberals, they took their shot and they missed. And now we're going to have to start prosecuting. And I'm like, okay, so Republicans like to say that this turns us into a banana republic. And then the next thing they say is that we need to start prosecuting Democrats for their crimes. Very much like we talked about.
I'm still here.
We lost Corey Scammer for a minute, but he's still here. Just like the whole lock her up campaign, right? Like these two fucking sides, they just keep going back and forth on this stuff and acting like for some reason theirs is justified and the others is wrong. And we just keep having this issue. Did we lose Corey permanently, Bell? All right. Looks like we lost Corey and Bell for just a moment. Oh, here he comes. He's coming back. He's back.
I'm back, baby. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened. I had set my phone down on my desk and I must have hit a USB cord.
Dude, it's the FBI, man. It's the FBI. They're coming at us.
Probably.
They're reaching.
I wish we had that clout.
One day.
And they're charging him with the lowest class of felony in the state of New York, which is only maximum sentence of 4 years in prison.
Mm-hmm. And so for those who don't really understand, I'm going to explain this as not a legal scholar, kind of a moron, just kind of how I know it.
Just a regular old intellectual idiot.
Intellectual idiot, right? So essentially, what they're going for is to charge Trump with what would generally be a misdemeanor, but it can be bumped up to a felony if that misdemeanor is committed as a cover-up for a federal crime. Okay. Now, here's what makes that stupid. The federal crime in which they are saying Trump committed, or the committed the misdemeanor to cover up, that supposed federal crime, the DOJ already decided not to charge him with. So now you're, and this is what I don't like about this precedent, Corey. Now we're able to bump up misdemeanors to felonies for cover-ups for crimes that weren't even charged. Is that not a little fucked up?
Yeah, it is. It's
so like if it was a situation,
that's why it all feels hollow to me. Like I'm not like,
yeah.
Oh, I want to see Trump in handcuffs so bad, but not for the sake of just compromising our own legal system.
That's why it feels like a banana republic thing, right?
Yeah,
that's why it feels like you're just trying to get Trump on anything that you can possibly get him on. I want him gone on real shit. That's
like
what I want.
It's like winning first place in track because you were in second and the guy in front of you tripped.
Yeah.
And then you win and it's like, hey, I won.
Oh, dude. It's brutal. And it gives so much less fervor to, or at least in the court of public opinion, particularly from actual Trump supporters who, you know, the whole I could shoot a man on Fifth Avenue and not lose any voters with a certain segment of the United States population. Trump is absolutely right about that. But like, man, you have the documents case. And again, the documents, it's not necessarily that he had the documents where the DOJ might actually have a federal case. It was the obstruction. It was the obstruction and the blocking of federal investigators that was the actual issue. You have the Georgia case, which is better than this one, but I still think a little bit flimsy because it's really kind of a hearsay case. I mean, we do have obviously the audio of Trump talking to Brad Raffensperger. We do have that. But again, it's vague language that could be interpreted various different ways.
I just need 12,000 votes. You can't find those for me?
Yeah, go. So like if Trump on that call had said something like, I need you to get these votes by any means necessary, or I need you to...
it was that phone call was virtually similar to his phone call with Zelensky.
Oh, the perfect phone call?
Yeah, I could. There's no problem. I can get you those weapons, but you gotta do something for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
yeah, because he's a crook, and we know he's a fucking crook. That's the thing. But like we're gonna just get him on some fucking faulty bookkeeping.
And he's really, really good at it.
And guess what? No one's buying it because so now this is a Trump internal poll.
Mm-hmm.
But in a recent ABC News Ipsos poll, 62% of Republican voters said Trump should not have been charged, though overall a polarity of voters, 45%, believe that charges were in order with regards to the nomination. A new Yahoo News YouGov poll showed Trump lapping DeSantis soundly by 26 points, 57% to 31% in a one-on-one contest. He enjoys a commanding 20-point lead. On an internal polling memo of reporters conducted over the previous 2 days after news broke of the former president's indictment, a survey of 1,000 likely voters, he led the Republican primary field by double digits with his closest competition, Florida Gov. Ron DeSantis, trailing by 30 percentage points, up 12 points from January. And according to the same polling, Trump leads President Biden 47 to 43% among Republicans, and 65% say they want the former president to run again. His polling, his donations had just gone straight through the goddamn roof. This put a fire under his ass. Ryan Grimm and Sagar and Crystal, and I forget homegirl's name, but they were all talking about how his speech after the indictment was like a 2016 type speech. He had fire under his ass. He was like ripping and raring, ready to go, and they were calling it. This was his speech to announce his running. His candidate announcement for candidacy speech, not his one back in what was that? January.
Well, yeah, and it kind of speaks to something that we talked about not that long ago, right? Like the Democrats want him to run, right? Because we talk about.
Here we go. This guy, I see, Dan. We need to like just put a fucking blue screen up for 45 minutes so we can get our homies in here hopping in. Oh, great! Just what the docs are ordered. Two stoners with their hot takes. Hey, buttheads. Ron Paul tried to save us, but no. And that's the thing. I still don't think he gets it because we were like, yeah, no, Ron Paul absolutely had it. Like,
yeah, we're actually remarkably libertarian, but if you find out. So, God damn it! Now I forgot what I was going to say.
God damn it! Equalizing distort. Please follow the fucking show.
By the way, I don't smoke weed. Booze is my vice.
Yeah.
No, so what I was going to say is, like, Democrats want Donald Trump to run. I mean, we talked about this not that long ago. They still feel like he's the most beatable candidate. I think they haven't learned anything.
They have a 50-50 crapshoot.
They haven't learned anything from 2016. They just, because we had talked about what were we talking about this? We were talking about I don't know, but it has to do with the fact that he's the most beatable candidate. So on one side, on one side of their mouth, they want to say that he's, the most dangerous, bigoted, horrible human being. But then on the other, but they never say the quiet part out loud, which is that we also think he's the most beatable candidate. And so it's almost like,
so
how much of this, so what's the percentage? So how much of this is that, Alvin Bragg and progressives or Democrats or whoever the hell they are, people that hate Trump, whatever. How much of it is that they want him arrested? And how much of it is that they want to play on the clout that he's going to get with his base, not only his base, but also people that are kind of more leaning towards him? How much of it is that they want to get them more galvanized so that he defeats DeSantis in a primary?
Because they know DeSantis would run the floor with Biden, even though DeSantis scares me a hell of a lot more than Trump does. I don't know. Well, here's the thing. They like Trump around because Trump's good for Trump, but he's not good for the Republican Party.
He's also good for Rachael Maddow. He's also good for CNN.
He's good for news
ratings,
him. Sure. But in 2016, under Trump's administration, they lost the House and the Senate. In 2020, in 2016, before people really knew who Trump was. I'm sorry, I got my numbers mixed up. Trump came in, Republicans win the House, Republicans win the Senate. 2018, they lost both the House and the Senate, I believe.
They lost just the House.
Just the House. The Senate became almost, it was super close.
It was 51-49.
Yeah. 2020 comes along. Democrats win the House. They win the Senate. They win the presidency. 2022 comes along. They keep the Senate. They lose the House. They have the presidency. But then also in all like the state votes and anything like that, they would just attach Trump's name to people and then they would lose. Granted, Democrats
outside of JD Vance. JD Vance was the only one that won. Yeah.
Granted, the Democrats spent millions and millions of dollars propping up the crazy MAGA people because they knew they could beat him in a general.
That's what it was. That's what we were talking about. I couldn't remember. You refreshed my memory.
Oh yeah. They do. They spend money propping up people who are Trump sycophants to get them into the general to try to beat them.
And it worked.
Thank God. Because I don't want any of those crazies in there. Just like I wouldn't want any crazies like fucking Rashida.
But you know what though? Here's what scares me though. If you are a really super Trump hater, here's what should scare you. I think all of those candidates, there's one difference between them and Trump. You know what that is?
What?
They're not actually Trump.
Yeah, they don't have that cult following. DeSantis doesn't have a cult following.
Trump is a different animal when you're talking about the actual person. And like Yeah, I really hate the idea of a Biden-Trump, another Biden-Trump election. Not just because I hate Trump, but also because I hate Joe Biden. And,
Well, and
and,
when it comes down to Trump and Biden, my candidate's going to lose anyways, so it doesn't matter.
that's very true. Mine as well. And we don't even know who that's going to be yet. Is it going to be Dave
No,
Smith?
I just know it's not going to be Trump or Biden.
Is it going to be Dave Smith? Is it going to be Spike Cohen?
If it's Spike Cohen, I'll vote for him.
I'll vote for Spike as well.
Fuck,
He's
man.
man.
If it's Trump, Biden, or Marianne Williamson, I'll vote for fucking Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
I don't agree with most of her shit, but she at least can string together a coherent sentence. I know that the bureaucracy isn't going to allow her to put any of her extreme views in. We saw that with Biden and we saw that with Trump. The very least is we could have someone who just seems to have all of their shit together.
Yeah. Why aren't people more interested in like having like a libertarian? It doesn't even have to be libertarian, but like a third party president and like a Republican Senate and a Democratic House, or a Democratic House and a Republican Senate. Like literally have all three of these, both branches all split three ways.
You talking about some three ways there, Dan?
Only if Nancy Pelosi's titties are available.
God
My
damn
goodness.
it. God fucking
You
damn
really
it.
know how to ruin a man's day.
You haven't talked about her titties in like 3 months.
Well, they haven't really been in the news, Corey. So
neither
it's
has she.
difficult.
Thank God.
You all know how we forget.
Dan loves them liver spotted titties.
I
Because they're
mean, I
perfectly
know-
placed. The nipple to boob ratio.
I know they are probably like, they're probably like, there's probably some fucking Snapchat filters on those things. I know that can't be exactly what they really look like when they're out.
That's
but-
why you don't want to see them. You just like to imagine.
Yeah, I mean, and also, isn't it a little comical to imagine drug Pelosi get up to the podium and just having like everything else about her is disgusting, including her
I picture her
personality.
being
But
similar.
she has
to,
immaculate breasts.
I picture her being similar to Jan from The Office, that just has a bunch of AIDS that are little boy toys.
Yeah.
I
Well, yeah,
picture
because,
her going home and like, hey, Pa. And he's like, no, the gardener's coming over. And then the gardener hits him with a hammer.
I was gonna say, yeah, because I mean, all the right-wing conspiracy theorists think Paul's gay anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing how quickly that story just went away?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because the footage came out and there was nothing they could run with anymore.
Oh, they tried though. Why is he holding a drink? Why was he holding a drink? Were they
Why
having
the
a little?
windows blew out
Were they having a
inside
little
the house?
gay escapade in there? Why would you be having a drink in that situation? Fucking idiot. Anyway,
Yeah.
you guys want to talk about tampons?
Let's talk about tampons.
Tampons?
Some tampons.
You guys know a little bit more about this story than me. I just thought that the premise of it is fucking hilarious, which is that Idaho Republicans are waging a war essentially on tampons in schools. Tampons are woke, Corey. They're woke. They're too woke.
Yeah. Right now I'm looking at an article from The Hill and it's labeled Idaho Republicans block woke free tampons in school proposal.
Do you know how much it cost?
$3.50
No,
per
like the
student.
whole bill for the year.
$300,000.
No, it's costing $750,000.
No, so the initial
Four plus
installation for the first year
Yes.
is $435,000.
Yes.
The following years would be about $300,000.
Well, one payment's for like machines, and then $300,000 was just for tampons and women's products.
Right. So the 435 plus the
Right.
300 for the first year would be 735,000.
Right.
But the following years would be
I don't give a
$300,000.
shit. That's not a lot of money
Not for how much money they just throw around.
in that state.
And Idaho is projected to have a $1.4 billion revenue surplus this year.
So before we talk about the finances, why don't you explain what Idaho Republicans think is woke about giving young girls who are probably just entering adolescence the access to free
Well,
tampons?
it's pretty easy to explain, Dad. When you talk
Are
to
the trans girls going to try and
Representative-
shove them up their butt?
when you talk to Representative Heather Scott, She wants to know that this very liberal policy. Why are our schools so obsessed with the private parts of our children?
What?
And another Republican legislator called language in the bill period poverty and menstrual equity woke terms. So there is the word woke again, because woke is just a blanket term.
Period poverty. And first of all, what the fuck is menstrual equity? They are just making words up now. They are just making up phrases. What is menstrual equity?
Isn't that frustrating? It's like Democrats put wording like that in bills designed to make it fail just so they can go, oh, look, Republicans hate adolescent teens. and they want them just bleeding everywhere. Dude, it's insane.
It's like,
no, the whole tampon argument is absolutely insane. Like, it's insane to me that like Michigan, I think, finally got repealed their tampon tax a couple years ago, but like people, like women still have to pay taxes on a fundamental hygiene product.
yeah, I think honestly, like I have no issue with having feminine hygiene products be untaxable, sort of like food. I have no
because
issue
I'm
with
pretty
that.
sure it's like that
no
for
issue with
men's
that.
razors.
No, they're taxed.
Real quick, look up if maybe disposable ones, but I think men's hygiene products aren't taxed. Look that up.
They're not.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh,
yeah,
maybe women's aren't then either. Then maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm open to that idea that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Tampons are the only thing that's taxed.
Just tampons. Okay, so the defense behind that is probably the fact that you don't have
Equalizing
to use tampons.
Equalizer said, "Hey, I trust you too on the tampon topic. Customers know best." And you know what? When you're married, and you have a wife, a girlfriend, and kids, there are times where you do have to go buy tampons, and you need to know the different brands and which ones to buy. So yeah, I am a customer of tampons because I have to run out and get them for my wife from time to time.
No, you like them in your butt. They feel nice. Look cushiony in there. You like them in your butt.
Only
Nice
when
and
they're
clean.
soaked in alcohol, Dan, or cocaine,
Or both.
or
So
both.
that kind of brings us back to the fact that if you were going to have a conservative pushback on giving young girls access to tampons in schools, why don't you go with the money side of it instead of breaking out
The whole woke thing.
the woke thing? Why does it always have to be woke? Because I disagree with it, but there is an argument to be made that, like, from a budgetary perspective, this isn't a good way to spend money. That's the argument. If you're going to make the argument against
Dude,
tampons in school.
So
I agree,
I got
but I
a
would
story. It just popped in my head about tampons in school. And I remember one time in the 7th grade, this girl in my class got her period for the first time. And she was wearing, and that guy, I remember sitting there just probably drawing on my paper, not paying attention.
Corey's
and
not
then-
naming names in this story, by the
And
way.
no, I'm not naming names. And I heard, I happened to look over as this girl stood up, and there was a puddle of blood in her seat, and she hurried up and sat down, and then all of her friends who were girls ran over and helped her clear herself up, and she put a hoodie around her waist, and we had a guy teacher, and she walked up to the teacher and goes, "Hey, I need to go to the bathroom." And he's like, "What? No, you just can't go to the bathroom." She's like, "No, I really, really, really need to go." And she had to explain to him when the whole class was staring at her. And she had her period. And I can imagine that being a pretty shitty situation in middle school for a girl to go through that could be
Yeah.
circumvented by the fact that you could just buy tampons in the women's bathroom.
Not as bad as the kid who shits his pants in 7th grade and nobody ever forgets about it.
You know what? People actually do forget those kind of stories. I remember one time I got poison ivy on my dick and I was scratching myself in class. And everyone thought I was jacking off. Talk about traumatizing situation.
I got a boner in gym class once.
And I wasn't fucking
Yeah.
poison ivy plants, for the record. I was pulling weeds to make some extra cash for a trip to Cedar Point with my church. And then as I'm pulling weeds, I didn't realize some of it was poison ivy. And then I ran to the bathroom to take a piss, and then went back out pulling weeds. And yeah, it's got some poison ivy oil on my dick.
Bummer, dude. I got a boner in gym class once wearing basketball shorts.
Bummer.
No, it was actually, here's the thing. It was the best thing that ever happened
Like,
to me.
I showed everyone.
No, here's the thing. So I took a class my sophomore year in high school. It's called life sports. And it's basically about like, it's all sports that you can like, or activities that you can do all the way up into old age. And one of the activities we did was yoga. And I love doing yoga. And I got a little too relaxed and pitched a little bit of a tent. I was trying to hide it. Can't hide it in basketball shorts. Real hard to do, right?
You got to
like,
tuck it into the band.
I was just hoping people didn't notice.
Yeah, dude.
And they did. They absolutely did. But here's the thing. The rumor was that went around school was that Dan
had a big
dick.
penis.
Yep. So it was like,
boy.
Wow, it's super embarrassing, but best rumor ever because I definitely don't have a giant dong. And I'm going, who are these senior girls having sex with that they think this like fucking 125 pound sophomore little white kid has a giant dong? While they're all having sex with the 300, the 210 pound football players.
Yeah, that's a way better rumor than being labeled
Great
a
rumor.
pervert.
Great rumor. It was a great rumor. It wasn't the fact that like, oh my God, what a pervert to get a boner in class. They were like, wow, did you see the size of that?
No, mine was like, hey, look at that fucking idiot. He's a pervert.
I don't know if
wrestle a girl in high school, and he got pinned and lost, and he stood up and he had a boner in his wrestling singlet. I felt so bad. Oh my God.
Fucking high school is a trip, dude. That's the jungle right there. So I guess
Anyway.
in the very least, we should be able to let the women have tampons.
Have tampons.
In this.
Get them out of the jungle.
Yeah. It's good for everybody. Right?
So
Yeah, for everyone.
That actually kind of leads us into our next topic, which is, I guess, more about culture wars and wokeism. So right-wing pundits need Dylan Mulvaney like Rachael Maddow needs Donald Trump.
So this one is honestly your guys's. I can honestly say I have not seen one Dylan Mulvaney video, but I will say that if you're one of those dumbasses out there buying Bud Light beer to just pour it down the sink, just ship it to me. I'll take it. I don't give a shit. It's like, I don't like Bud Light is not my choice of beer. I probably haven't bought Bud Light in years.
But you'll take a free one.
But if someone's only giving it to me for free, yeah.
Those are the best Bud Lights.
Yeah.
I'll take a Modelo.
Have it say she, her, he, him, they, them on it, Z, there, whatever on the can. I don't give a fuck. And the reason why I'm even saying that is the fact that Bud Light doesn't give a fuck either. They sat in a room, they looked at their demographics, and someone in that room took all of that data and said, we might be able to make some money if we pander to this group and grift and put a trans person on the can. Because that's ultimately what this is. Bud Light doesn't give a shit if you're a redneck or if you're an inbred in the Appalachian Mountains or you're some limp-wristed liberal in New York who's never even held a shovel. As long as the money's green, they don't give a fuck.
Wasn't that just it, right? This is a situation where Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney are engaging in a thing called capitalism, which is something that I thought conservatives supported. Didn't you? I always thought that.
Yeah, I always thought so.
So
Republicans are the ones that are always talking about how they know the economy and they know how supply and demand works and stuff like that. And the people that are bitching about it, like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, of all people, should know what it means to grift, based on their chocolates that they were selling a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is and the thing that's even more interesting than the fact that conservatives aren't understanding the fact that this is just basic capitalism is the fact that they're also using what have traditionally been quote unquote lefty tactics to deal with it. Boycott Bud Light.
Yeah, Michelle's here. She said, did you see the video of Kid Rock shooting up cases of Bud Light?
I did. did.
He goes, Grandpa's feeling a little frisky. Like, oh, good job. You just gave Bud Light $150 and all that beer you bought to shoot with your gun.
Can we just admit?
And they
that,
weren't
like,
even the fucking cans. They were cans from before.
Can we just admit that?
And that's
all
one thing
people
too.
want to do is use outrage to make money.
Yeah,
that's all. That's all
it
anybody does anymore. On the
distracts
cultural left
them
and the
from-
cultural right.
And like Michelle just said, they made one can and sent it to her. It's not even a case I can go out and buy, or you.
Yeah,
can
but
go
they
out and
also
buy.
they also did confirm that there is going to be an ad campaign. I don't know what the hell that's going to consist of or whatever, but Bud Light did confirm that they're working with Dylan Mulvaney on this. So I don't know what that means. I don't know. Maybe they'll pull the plug on it. Maybe they just wanted to use this as a publicity stunt to help. And Dylan Mulvaney was like, "Oh yeah, this sounds great. Here's a way to piss off conservatives. I'll take part in that too." I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's like, it just goes back to the cultural hypocrisy that both sides have. They use the same fucking tactics. They bitch about the same stuff, right? When it's Twitter kicking off conservative voices, well, that's just a private company doing what it wants to do. And then, when Bud Light works with Dylan Mulvaney, it's conservatives are doing the same thing. Wait, I think I just used the wrong examples. Sorry, I caught a little bit of a buzz.
No, get it in post. Just get it in post.
Get it in post. But you know what I mean, though. Like you.
Oh yeah, no, like what you said.
Like conservatives bitch about boycotting when it comes to, I don't know.
I don't even think conservatives understand what boycotting means, because boycotting just means not buying the product.
Right.
Boycotting doesn't mean buying the product just to get some clout online to show that you don't like it by buying it and then burning it or shooting it.
Right. And then, and actually giving the money to the...
You're still giving them money. I hate you so much. I'm going to hate spend this money and I'm going to hate burn it just to stick it to the libs.
Well, so often conservatives see boycotting as like some censorship deal, like, oh, they're trying to censor us again, and then they go out and they want to boycott things like Bud Light, or they want to boycott Pixar or Wayfair because there's apparently some because of some goofy pedophile ring.
He was literally triggered.
Kid Rock just wants people to buy his beer. What's his beer? The Badass. What's it?
His beer.
That's right. Yeah, water. Badass. Yeah.
Something
well, so is
beer.
Bud Light. So is Bud Light.
Oh yeah, I would never buy Bud Light. I'm a Miller Lite boy.
Detroit River.
Do you know Bud Light on their can actually has to put LIGHT because Miller Lite was the first. Miller was the first company to come out with a light beer, and they trademarked LITE.
Mm-hmm.
Little fun fact for you. Spread that around. Tell your friends at the next little shindig.
You just put Bud Diet. Diet Bud.
Diet Bud. I don't even like Budweiser. Budweiser tastes like well water to me.
It's fine. It's all garbage, but
I do like
right.
it.
You like Budweiser, really?
I do.
Nah, it tastes like well water to me.
I like it better than High Life.
But can we also talk about the fact?
Get out.
Oh, I disagree with that as well.
Bell just got fired live on the air.
Yeah, dude. If I'm going piss water, I'm going either High Life or PBR.
Yeah.
Those
do you remember? So now we're going on a little bit of a tangent here, but do you remember Game Day when 7-Eleven had their own beer?
I do remember that. I don't know if I ever tried it.
It was like $6 for a 12-pack.
Did you enjoy it?
No, I was like 22 years old, just trying to get drunk and talk to chicks. So I didn't give a shit. We were shotgunning them the whole time.
Followed up with a
obviously
Mickey's
it wasn't
liquor.
Obviously it wasn't great. They don't make it anymore.
A Mickey's 40 right after that.
Oh yeah, no man, Mad Dog.
Oh God,
Mad Dog and a pint of Admiral Nelson.
My high school girlfriend's dad bought that by the 30-pack, and I would steal one every once in a while, and it was the most disgusting beer.
To watch a Dylan Mulvaney video.
30 Mad Dogs.
Yeah.
What? No. So Bell brings up a good point. Like, I still think Dylan Mulvaney is an absolute cultural grifter.
He's no different than kind of what we do. He's just trying to make money and
Don't misgender. Don't misgender. She.
Who said he?
You did.
Oh, I meant she. I'm sorry.
Want me to
I
roll
didn't mean
back
to
the
do that.
tape?
Yeah, I'm not an asshole. I don't mean to misgender people. I could think that that she, as a transgender woman, is a grifter, a failed actor who found a niche. I could say that. I'll still call her she, though. Like, if I met her in person, I wouldn't be like, oh, I wouldn't be a dick. I would still respect the person as a person. I would still stand in a fucking protest in the picket line for her to have her right to say that she's a she and trying to live her life. But I would still be like, I would be next to her being like, I think you're a grifter, but I still think you deserve your rights. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's
well, and that's the thing. It's like being a grifter is not illegal.
No.
If people are willing to give her money to stand around and go,
then good for her.
200
She's making a lot more money than we are.
200 days of girlhood. Let's normalize the bulge. We can support that, but it's it's just like, I also understand the side of feminists or even trans activists. I think Belle, I think you had mentioned this before the show. Even certain trans people are like, this isn't fucking good for our cause. This is.
I know it's actually me that mentioned it. Yeah, no, I saw a lot in the comments of people say that, like, what she's doing, she's just kicking up stones and kicking up dust in situations to where there doesn't necessarily need to be dust kicked up. Because as evidenced by it, like, we're seeing there's millions of trans people out there that are just trying to live their life and not be a part of this whole culture war thing. And then you just
my cousin is one of them, by the way.
The noisy, not numerous, are out there causing, or not, I don't want to say causing, but making so much noise that Republicans feel that, well, we don't have any other policy. We don't have any policy to run on, so I guess we'll just attack this because it makes us uncomfortable. And it makes the people who are claiming to be victim, when there's a bunch of laws that protect them, become actual victims because they're pushing their ideology in other people's faces so much that people feel that people on the right are so clutching onto their pearls so much that they feel like they have to make legislation to stop it. When it's all culture, like, it has nothing to do with law. It has nothing to do with infringing on your rights, but it makes you so uncomfortable because it's forced on you that you feel like you have to make laws to block it, which I think is almost the definition of fascism in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, for a long time, I thought about the trans movement like it was kind of the new gay movement, because like homosexuality at this point, outside of like religious zealots, is pretty much just accepted. Like, nobody gives a shit really if anybody's gay at this point. Like, nobody cares. But I think to the point where it's like, okay, it's going to take a generation. It's going to take a little while for society to kind of get used to, just like homosexuality did when people finally really started to come out in the 80s, the late 80s, and definitely through the 90s. We started to kind of normalize homosexuality. Obviously, you had Ellen come out on her TV show. You had Rosie O'Donnell come out on her TV show, all in the 90s. And it didn't take long before most of society is pretty accepting of homosexuality. I mean, gay marriage is legal nationwide. It's not really that much of a fight anymore. Obviously, you have vocal minorities of people that still hate gay people, of course, but
the noisy, not numerous.
Yeah, this to me is just a little bit different, because you do have the part where you're dealing with children making decisions to make permanent changes to their body, and it makes people nervous. And we don't have
rightfully so when it comes to the children.
Yeah, exactly.
Rightfully so, yeah,
exactly. But if a kid just came out as gay in the 90s, that's very different. It's like, you're not okay. If they just turn out not to be gay in 10 years, well, whatever. They aren't gay anymore. Nobody was harmed. But if somebody comes out as trans as a child and you pump chemicals into their body or hormones or perform surgeries on them, and then 10 years later they went, oh shit, that was a mistake. Well, you can't just go back to being what you were before. And I think that's
something new
difference between the gay movement of the 90s and what we're seeing now?
It's something new because it's for the first time in our country's history, I believe, that a minority group has a banknote behind it that's in virtually the billions. Where usually a minority that tries to rise up has billions of dollars trying to stifle them. When you talk about Black people trying to get their freedom from slavery, Black people trying to get their right to vote, even gay people trying to get their right to marry. This one, it's been flipped in reverse because you have industries like the healthcare industry and all these other big industries behind them trying to push it through. So it's created a lot of whirlwinds in the country, and it's like we talked about on the show millions of times at this point, to where it's like we absolutely defend the right for someone to be trans, but it's like there needs to be a pause on this. We need to figure out what exactly is going on.
Yeah. I'm with you. And
he's with me, Bell. Did you hear that?
With you. And look, it's another one of those situations where both things can be true. You know, the right loves Dylan Mulvaney. I mean, especially the Daily Wire. They love Dylan Mulvaney.
Oh yeah, because it's low hanging
fucking video. Every other fucking video.
What was it before
Go ahead,
Dylan
Bill.
Mulvaney? Rihanna Super Bowl show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because she was pregnant.
Yeah.
They're dying.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like that's exactly like what it says. The right-wing pundits need Dylan Mulvaney, like Rachael Maddow needs Donald Trump. They need something to bitch about because it makes their jobs easier. You know,
Instead
they
of
could
actually
have a
having
show like
legitimate
ours that's not as sexy when we're talking about the nuance of something like what were we talking about a little bit ago? Like what Scott says, like Supreme Court stuff. Like that stuff's not as sexy. It's not as angered.
Well, Corey, and I think a lot of that is, and I honestly, I don't mean to have like some holier than thou take here. I hope people understand. You and I, we don't make any money doing this. This isn't why, and it's not even why we do it. Like I hope we can make some money at some point doing this, but that's not why we do it. It's not why we have almost 100 goddamn episodes without raking in
for us,
without raking in a single dime. You know, and it's really what it is. It's really the difference. I mean, Jeremy's chocolates, Jeremy's razors. Like you're not kidding anybody, Daily Wire. You're not kidding anybody with what you're trying to do. You're not kidding anybody, Dylan Mulvaney, with what you're trying to do. Fucking selling tickets to a goddamn Broadway show.
Occupy Democrats.
To talk about your 200 days of girlhood. Like, fuck all of you. Back to the basics. Sorry.
That's so true.
Yeah, it is. It's very true. Yeah.
Like, what do you, laugh out of madness.
They all suck. They all suck.
Yeah.
Speaking of suck, how about the Bell, did you have a video on? You did have a video on this, the raid on the Tennessee Capitol last week. I have not seen this. I am familiar with the story now after talking to you guys about it for a couple of weeks. So yeah, we can start. We can start with that.
Oh, where is play? What is going on?
Or
I don't know.
What do you need me to set it up for you?
Full screen that bish.
I guess we're just raiding capitals now.
Hold
So.
on.
While Bell looks for this, I'll set it up. So I don't remember what day was this. There was a raid on the Tennessee Capitol.
It was either March 29th or March 30th, I believe.
Okay, so about a week ago, as we record on April 5th, this is a situation where folks on the left were raiding the Tennessee State Capitol to protest gun rights. Correct?
Right. Yep. And now to keep everything as fair as possible. The House Majority Leader of the Republican Party did say it was peaceful overall, that there wasn't any arrests, there was no damage to the property. They didn't actually make it onto the floor, but they did this. They breached the Capitol building. They got inside. They were up in the balconies and in the lobby there to protest
Where this video was taken
gun
from.
rights or gun control or whatever. But so what the issue is that Republicans have with this, and the reason why they're calling this an insurrection, is because 3 Democrat representatives broke decorum, broke the rules and procedures of the House floor, and took the podium, like forced themselves onto the podium with a bullhorn and started like chanting like protest mantras and doing things like that. And the video is right here, so go ahead and play that video, Belle.
No action, no peace! No action, no peace! No peace! No action, 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 no peace!
Talking about protecting the Second Amendment, but we have not seen the bill out of the House, we're talking about providing them guns. Instead of stopping the NRA legislation, now we are
I was gonna say you can go ahead and stop it there because, like,
You can't really understand what they're saying.
no, but you know, here's what's stupid about, like, who are they talking to? You know, it's one of those situations of like
There was probably
what
hundreds,
are
if not thousands, in the balcony.
But like, but so who are you talking to? Who are you trying to convince? Because the people in the balcony that came into the building
already
agree
agree
with you. All of the Democrats already there, or maybe not all of them, but a good majority of the Democrats already there probably already agree with you. Like, when you go in with a bullhorn in that situation, in a situation that requires decorum, who are you screaming to? And that's like, Corey, before you go ahead and say what you got to say. Like, this is the kind of shit that drives me nuts. This is all for fucking clout. Like, you don't think that those Democrats that stormed, and I would say the same thing if it was Republicans, right? You don't think the people that stormed to the front of that chamber with a bullhorn screaming, you don't think that the only reason they were doing that was to boost their own fucking social credit score? You don't think?
Oh, absolutely.
You're not convincing anyone in that room.
Here's the thing. All those people that are in there yelling that type of stuff, right? They're in there protesting gun rights. And I'm not going to disparage their views on it because of the fact that, like, they're obviously there because, like, a lot of them brought their kids with them and stuff like that. Like, they're generally scared. You know, they're scared for their children. Like, I drop my kids off at school. You guys need to make sure that they're protected. So I get them yelling and things like that. But you know who is in there actually, like, voting on it to make it happen is those very people. And we live in a country that's based on constitutional law, and it gives us so much freedom. But on the very backstop of that freedom is those people keeping decorum and doing their jobs in a house, and to just completely just ignore that and go up on that stage, or go up on into the well, they called it, you know, it's the podium, and break the rules and procedures there. You're just showing all your representatives that the rule of law and procedure and basic decency doesn't fucking matter.
God, we sound like boomers.
That does make me sound like a boomer. But you know what? There's certain things that are like that need to have rules. If this happened in my city, I probably would be one of the protesters. You know what I mean? But if I was a representative, I wouldn't be with a blowhorn, because I'm going to get plenty of time to stand there on that podium and say shit. And then my voice, my one vote in that house, represents thousands of people that I have so much more power with that vote than any of them ever do. The reason why they're up there yelling in the first place is because they don't have the power that I have.
Yeah, and so I think that's one of the issues that I think we have when it comes to the most contentious issues that we have in this country. So if we think about them, just spitballing here, right? Like,
Bell just said, you'd think that a lawmaker that goes in there with a megaphone would have known that people were going to storm the building.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's a little bit conspiratorial, but honestly, makes a lot of sense.
So like, and what's interesting too is the Republican House Majority Leader. Let me find my article right here. So I forget his first name. It's Sexton. I forget his last name, but he's the House Majority Leader. But he goes, no, he's like, all the protesters were peaceful. There was no property damage. No one was arrested. He goes, but those 3 people, the representatives, he goes, I want them expelled. So now they're trying to make a motion to get them out. And then one of them, actually, I forget the guy's name, so I'm not going to just say it to make sure. It's either Pearson or the other one with the P. He threw water or liquid from a cup on a Republican lawmaker while he was in the House. And it's like, when the world is on fire, those representatives are the firemen trying to quell the fires and keep some sort of decorum and, rationality in the country.
You
and
look
when
at
you're
that and you
pulling
go,
this shit, it's just not good.
imagine if, and this is in no way defense of this person, but imagine if Marjorie Taylor Greene had done something like that on the federal scale. That's what I'm saying. Like even somebody like Marjorie Taylor
Yell
Greene
from her seat, be a dumbass
who's a
all day long.
fucking idiot and an awful representative for her constituents, but they're too stupid to know it. Even she would never pull a stunt
That
like
was
that.
generalization, Dan.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And in this case, I'm not going to apologize for it because I've seen what her voter base looks like. Anyway, yeah, I'm an asshole there. I was probably wrong. I should probably apologize, but I'm not going to.
You need to make a well-crafted
You don't
statement.
need to. You know why? Because we have come a long way from Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, bruh. They were throwing chairs at each other, threatening each other's lives. Everybody's pulling guns on each other in Congress.
It's interesting you say that because I'm actually going to bring that up. I was going to say, this is a kickback where there needs to be decorum in the House based on our representatives. There needs to be a sort of there needs to be procedure, rule, law, decorum there. Because we're all the assholes that are out there in the streets kicking over trash cans and smashing windows. Those are the ones that need to have a sense of pause. They're the ones that are supposed to be the voice of reason, right? And for them to do the same shit, it reminds me of right leading up to the Civil War, when they were all in there fighting each other and kicking each other and stabbing each other and shooting each other with guns and things like that on the Capitol floor. That's how the whole Republican Party came to fruition. You know that, right? It used to be the Democratic Republican Party. No, that split up. It was the Democratic Party and the Whigs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the Whigs were a bunch of bitches. And anytime the Whigs brought up trying to get rid of slavery, the Democrats would just literally call duels and beat the shit out of them. To where the Republican Party came up and they're like, we'll go in there and fight them too. That's fine. We'll go and beat the shit out of them. And then when the Republicans showed up and started fighting the Democrats, basically is when all the Democrats in the southern states seceded.
So what you're saying is that the Whigs were like a past version.
They were a bunch of limp-wristed lily lickers, Dan.
You just ruined my joke.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to call them the colonial version of soy boys.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop interrupting me when I'm trying to make a joke.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that every time you go to make a joke, I make a better one. I'm just teasing. That's me being an
fuck
asshole.
you too. But here's the thing about what they were protesting in the first place, right? Because I think this is such a contentious issue, where along with abortion, and the thing that most folks don't understand about contentious issues in politics is that, or cultural issues, is that they're so contentious because both sides have good points, right? When you talk about abortion, both sides have good points. They have very salient points. They have very salient concerns. That's why it's such a contentious issue. I think guns is another one of those things, because when you when you are, I can't imagine being the parent of somebody who's murdered in a school shooting. I can't imagine what that fucking feels like. And I could look at that and go, okay, if my child, and I don't even have kids, but you guys both do. If
Allegedly.
your child, if your child was murdered by a school shooter, you could totally understand, maybe not yourselves, but other parents that went through the same thing with you going, man, I fucking hate guns. Like it's honestly a legitimate reaction to a situation like that. And I think that's part of the problem that the gun advocacy people have, is that I don't think they have enough empathy for the feelings that people have when they go through these tragic situations. You can disagree with it and say,
they
like,
do.
I don't think
They just say thoughts and prayers.
Right, but they don't actually understand the sentiment of, I fucking hate guns because a gun killed my kid. That's an absolutely legitimate reaction. Think about if you're walking through a field and a rattlesnake bites your toddler on the ankle and he dies. And you go, man, I fucking hate rattlesnakes, right? You would hate that. You could understand that parent having that reaction. You know what I mean? And I don't think there's enough empathy for that. And there can be a legitimate
there is,
conversation.
Dan. All the Republicans come out every time and say thoughts and prayers.
Nah, that's bullshit. That's just their way of getting out of actually having a
Thoughts and
legitimate
prayers,
conversation.
Dan.
But they just react to it. Like we all know. And then I think folks on the left with guns, or the anti-gun people, I think they need to have a little bit more understanding that, like, dude, you're going to have to fucking live with guns. Like that they're not going away regardless. Like if you made guns illegal tomorrow, or at least the sale, because you wouldn't be able to make guns illegal, but you could make the sale of firearms somehow illegal tomorrow. How long do you think it's going to take before all the guns are gone? Because everybody that already has guns still has their guns. It's not illegal to own them. It's just illegal to buy and sell them. They're not going to be gone tomorrow. They're not going to be gone in a decade. They're not going to be gone in 2 decades. So the anti-gun folks, what do you mean? What won't happen? What wouldn't happen?
I mean, it would be illegal, but people would still be buying and selling firearms.
Of course, of course.
So that's the conundrum, because like ultimately any law put in place by guns is gonna only the ones who follow it are law-abiding citizens in the first place.
Well, there's these things that happen so much that the government realizes that they can't stop. Marijuana, for one.
Right.
Legalize.
And that's what I mean. That's what I mean. I think that's the major disconnect for me, is that folks on the right need to have a little bit more empathy for the feelings of people that hate guns because of a tragic situation that happened to them or their family. And I think folks on the left need to realize, dude, you're going to have to live with these fucking things. They ain't going anywhere.
I personally, I'm someone that believes you should be able to own any gun that you want. But I'm also a firm believer in selling those guns to the appropriate people.
See,
we have to figure out.
Even that, you would have certain gun advocacy people that would vehemently disagree with you.
I know. That's okay.
So, and that's the thing, is like, that's another thing that I think is missing on the anti-gun side, is that they don't even realize that people that are pro-gun have serious disagreements even within their own communities, as far as like what gun rights are, you know, what laws make sense and don't make sense, what laws are okay, which ones aren't, and what gun safety represents. Like you guys are more into guns than me. And even I know that, like, even
no, Dan, I don't like guns. I don't own any. I lost them all in a boating accident.
Damn it!
But you fucker.
Stealing everyone's jokes. Call me the joke. The joke miser.
But you know what I mean? Like, gun people even have disagreements amongst themselves about what makes sense and what doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe in red flag laws or anything like that.
That's a thought crime.
Yeah.
Like DUI.
But there's a lot of cases where people obviously shouldn't have guns, where they went into a store and legally bought a gun. Like, a lot.
Mhm.
So I think that's something we can, even as people, without a government, can agree.
But it's a slippery slope, though, because where do you draw the line? Like,
My
who's
thing-
qualified to own a gun and who's not? It's tough.
When people are guilty of domestic violence, go into a store and buy a gun, that's a problem.
So all of those things, like those are always valid, very, very valid points. My thing is always like, okay, now who decides that?
The
Exactly.
person committing domestic violence.
No, but if the person is already unhinged enough to go commit domestic violence, they think that they're okay enough to own a gun.
Okay, true.
Who decides who does and doesn't get a gun?
No, I get your point.
Well,
That's
and
fine.
domestic
And
violence
nobody can
even-
ever answer that question. If somebody had a valid, like a question of that
Yeah,
would
who
put
decides?
my apprehension and my cynicism of our government at ease, then I would be on board.
That's my
But when people are like, "Oh, red flag laws," you know, this and this and that, like you need to see a therapist before you get a gun and stuff like that, and it's like, all right, but who decides? The
Yeah.
government? Because fuck that. The government thinks that stopping frisks on random people and citizens that circumvent their constitution is okay. The government thinks it's perfectly fine to just spy on you and I without a warrant, completely destroying our constitutional rights.
And that is why
And that's why the conundrum happens, because when there's
Gun
all this
rights
content
and gun rights and guns are a contentious issue because both sides have things don't become contentious issues without both sides having a really good fucking argument. Like, we all agree that murder is bad. Nobody's defending murderers. Like, murder is not a contentious issue. Abortion is, because both sides have good points. Guns it's a contentious issue because both sides have good points.
Yeah.
And I think we have to start recognizing what causes a contentious issue is that you have to steel man the other side and have a good faith discussion that you can both walk away in disagreement, but at least understanding.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
And
with
that's
all
what's so
contentious
interesting to me
issues that we
too,
have.
is like we're going back to what I was saying, like when we say who, you know, I could be sitting there and talking to someone, they go, there's gotta be a way that we can circumvent some of these shooting. And it's like, absolutely. And then it goes into like red flag laws and stuff. And it's like, but who decides that? And no one has an answer and people get frustrated. Rightfully so, because that is a weird question to be asked. Like, who does that? Because no one has an answer for that question.
This isn't it's not fucking Minority Report.
Right.
I mean, we don't have that technology.
Like, how many times has someone who's been a shooter has been on the FBI watch list?
Mhm.
Or the gun was illegal or stolen from their parents? I'm okay with, like, now in that situation, I'm okay with parents being held liable because they're irresponsible gun owners that their parents got a hold of the gun. That shouldn't even be a conversation. Like,
Yeah.
oh, a 9-year-old went and shot up his class. Oh, where'd he get the gun? Well, it was his parents. Oh, what did his parents just not properly secure the gun and be responsible gun owners? That's negligence. They don't have to be like the kid, you know, murder, parents, negligence. They don't have to like take some crazy.
But you know what, Corey? I don't mean to play devil's advocate here, but there's a slippery slope even for that, right? Because what if that 9-year-old, instead of going to get his parents' gun, just decides to like slip a kitchen knife in his pocket or in his bag without mom or dad knowing about it and stabs a kid in school?
That's true. No, you're
You
right.
know,
You're
it's-
right.
Well,
Because it's all about the intent, not the weapon.
right, but are
Right.
you still doing your part as a parent?
Yeah, the court of law, the parents would be innocent
Yeah.
going into that courtroom, and they'd be
Right.
proven guilty that there was negligence or foul play. If
Fair
they
enough,
had
fair
knives and a
enough.
knife block on a counter, and like
You still gotta be.
that's where you
parent.
keep your knives. Like everyone's like, yeah, that's where I keep my knives. Where do you keep your pistol? Well, I have kids, so I keep it in my little safe. You know, you keep a loaded pistol on the table, and then your kid doesn't even shoot up a school, but shoots his friend because they're playing with it, thinking they're cowboys and Indians, and he kills his friend. That was negligence on the parents' part.
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
Two
that
gun
was
advocates.
from two gun advocates. That's what I mean. Like, because you guys both understand that the anti-gun people have good points.
Yes.
Because they do. They have good points.
My kids are not getting my guns. That's right now. Like, I have guns.
You're
My kids
away
are
from
not
them.
touching them.
You're away from them, and you're
Yeah,
still
away from
confident they're not going to touch them.
No, they're not. They never, even if they could. My kids, well, my older one, I got a little one. She doesn't know anything about them. But my older one, even if I left him out, he would be scared to death of it. He knows what it is.
You're not training her yet?
What?
You're not training her yet?
No.
So let me elaborate. So my son hasn't touched like any of my actual real guns, but I got him a couple Nerf guns, and I've just been driving into his head. Trigger control, where you point the barrel. It's always treat it like it's loaded. Don't point it at your own face. That's just something that I've been doing with my kid.
Oh. Fair enough. Good way to end the show. Good conversation. Corey, before we go, tell the people where they can find us.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast. And you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today. Give us a rating. And tell a friend, just your best friend, that friend that you actually talk about this stuff with. Be like, hey, I heard.
No, seriously, if you're this far into the show, podcasts do grow best through word of mouth. I mentioned it earlier on in the show. Corey and I don't make any money. We hope to at some point, but right now we don't. We talk about this stuff because we give a shit. We talk about this stuff because we care. And the best way to grow a podcast is through word of mouth. So if you even just tell one person, share it, shoot it to them in a text message. If you liked it, if you liked any of our previous episodes, we always appreciate it. So, for Bell the Body Snatcher, he's been Corey Walsh.
He's been Dan Griffin.
This has been Libservative. And until next time, we are out of here.